lovely patrons. It's Chris here from Cult or Just Weird, and also...
Kayla. I thought you were going to say my name.
I wasn't. I was waiting for you to say your own name.
Well, I'm here, too. We just got finished recording the Season 5 finale, and now we're here to record the Season 5 finale bonus content.
This is more of like a Season 5 bonus. It's like what we're here to talk about today is actually sort of...
It's Season 5.
Summing up Season 5. It's not really summing it up. We can do a little bit of a summary, but I wanted to just reflect on the nature of Season 5's theme.
Okay.
Because it hit a little different, I think, than previous seasons' themes. Previous seasons' themes have been around... actually, have we even done more than one theme? I've said previous seasons, but I think only Season 4 had a theme. Season 4 was the find the helpers theme, but Season 3 didn't have any theme.
No, it didn't, but we did
No.
We did get to Season 4 through the finale of Season 3.
Okay, so Season 3 plays into it. Okay.
Season 2 had a lot of QAnon stuff.
That's just because we did a lot of episodes on QAnon.
Yeah.
All right, so here in our second out of 2 themes, I'm thinking about the themes. I just want to talk about the feelings that come with going and participating in things.
Because
it's different.
Yeah.
Doing episodes where we're just doing online and other... second, third party research.
Even when we have interviews or something. Yeah.
Even when we have interviews, because the interview is buy-in, right? Whenever we do those types of episodes, there's this distance. There's this observer distance that we have with the topic.
Right.
And like you said, with the interviews, there's buy-in. If we interview someone, it's because we reached out to them on behalf of the podcast, right? It's because we talked to them on behalf of the podcast and said, you're going to be in a podcast. Let's talk about something. So there's no everything, all the cards are on the table. Whereas participation in events, there's this sort of weird dichotomy of well, are we participants or are we observers?
Especially because so much of what we participated in was cool stuff that I wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was I'm here because I really want to be here, and also I'm here for my show. And I don't know how to make, if I'm telling somebody hey, I'm here because I'm doing it for my show and also because I really want to be here, I don't know how to make those both have the same weight and gravity.
Yeah. And every time that you and I went to a place, we discussed ahead of time, we were what do we do? Do we say that this is for a podcast? Do we say that that's why we're here? Or do we just participate anybody? Because everything that we went to was open. It's not we were going under false pretenses.
No, we didn't
to
go to any closed meetings.
We didn't go to any closed meetings. We didn't misrepresent who we were. It was just oh, hey, you can come to this Philosophical Research Society thing. Or, oh, on Sundays we do a meeting, a discussion group at the Theosophical Society. So there's just open stuff, but still it feels if we were to withhold if we weren't being upfront about the fact that we had a podcast and that this is motivating us to be here, then it feels like we're being disingenuous and we're I don't know, almost like we're spying on people somehow, in this weird way. And I know all this rant is probably just journalism 101 stuff that I just never did journalism
school. This is how you know we didn't go to college for this. We are not journalists.
Yeah, this is
We're two dumbasses with a microphone.
Yeah, this is the oh shit, we're not journalists season. Yeah, I don't know. It was a challenge to maintain, because there's value in both sides of this thing, right? There's value in I am interacting with these people on a human level because they're a person and I'm a person and we're both interested in this thing.
Right.
But then there's also value in the observing without disturbing, because as soon as you say oh, you're from a podcast or something, then unconsciously or consciously it changes people's behaviors and how they, things they may or may not say.
Which we did run into, somebody did say, oh, now that I know that there's this kind of person here, I'm going to, like somebody literally said, I'm going to alter how I behave in this group because these people are here observing.
Right.
Which I felt kind of bad about.
Which felt really bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I never know, like, what's the right direction to take that? Is the right direction to be like, no, I'm just here because it's an open thing and it's whatever. You don't bring up the podcast, just observe what happens. Or is the correct thing to do is to say, like, this is why I'm here and I might talk about you later onto a microphone.
Right.
I still don't have a great answer for that.
And I think it's also like, I also think about the other way of like how it changes how I think and feel about the quote unquote subject or topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel very like, and this is paternalistic, but I feel very protective of some of the people and groups that we've talked about this season because I'm like, so-and-so at the Theosophical Society was so welcoming. I don't want to produce an episode about this that makes somebody out there think poorly of them. Yeah. Like I felt very cognizant of that, of like, I feel protective of these people. I think they're doing nothing wrong and I like them and they were kind to me. And so I don't want to produce something that makes them look bad. And that's,
that's a bias.
Yeah, that's a bias. And it's also, that's different than like, I read about this on the internet.
Right. But I think that's what makes it so challenging is because it's like it's an inescapable bias that once you actually talk to somebody face to face,
right?
They're no longer a subject. They are a real person.
We probably should have like studied sociology or anthropology
or literally
both.
anything
like
that has to do
you
with
should have gone to journalism school and I should have gone to like sociology school.
I guess we've had time by now. This is our 5th season.
Yeah,
we don't
I know.
really have an excuse. Maybe we should do that in the off season actually.
Go to journalism school.
Or at least like take some classes or something. I'm just afraid that because the last time I talked to a real journalist about this who was like a very good person, and very good journalist, like almost won a Pulitzer, I think, multiple times. When they were talking to me about because I basically was like, hey, do you have any advice? So, this is I think the 2nd season. So we're trying to improve. Do you have any advice? And most of it was stuff that...
not actionable for you or I?
No, it's not that it's not actionable. It's that it was stuff that we were kind of already doing.
Oh. Like what?
It didn't speak to this, how do you deal with relationship with your subject? And I wish that I had asked about that. But the stuff
you need to go ask about that, particularly because this journalist...
I don't know if I want to say the subject that he has...
spent a long amount of time with
a very
problematic political figure.
Yeah.
And I know. And this is not the only journalist to do that. A lot of that's a form of journalism where you go and embed essentially with
really bad
an
people.
Odious person who knows you're writing a story about them.
Right.
And so I'm assuming, I don't know anything about how this works. I'm assuming you have to have a friendly enough relationship with them where they open up to you and you guys want to hang out, but that this person fucking sucks. And I'm going to write an article about them that shows how much they fucking suck.
I would love to know about the mindfuck of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I wish I had talked to him about that. The stuff that I was saying that were kind of things that we were already doing was sort of baseline things where he talked about the subject matter needs to be both, it needs to be truthful and also newsworthy. Right? Because there's things out there where it's yes, this is the truth, but is it newsworthy? Is this important to know? And actually, now that I think back, it was when we were doing before we were doing the QAnon episodes, and my concern was, are we amplifying or are we informing? And I think that's why his answer was more geared around that, which was
right.
Well, you need to think about is what you're saying both true and newsworthy? Because if it's not, then you're not adding anything to the conversation. You're just potentially amplifying something bad.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of want to go back and talk to him now about what do you do when you're not sure whether the subject matter, you're hanging out with someone and then it makes you biased, but also they're a person. What do? I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for this either. Just like the Death Cafe episode where I didn't have a good answer for what happens after you die, I don't have a good answer for we should handle this in future participatory experiences.
Well, I think it's really interesting because part of why we did this, like, let's go to a thing in Los Angeles, the season, is because of the finale of the previous season, where we went to the Etheria Society.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is right in our own backyard. We should do a whole season of this. And what else did we feel about that? We felt really fucking bad and weird going to the Etheria Society, and we didn't tell them.
Yeah.
We went as participants, but we did not inform.
And it's an open meeting.
It's an open meeting. We didn't misrepresent ourselves in any way, but we did not lead with the information, which we did. We tended to do that this season.
Yeah.
Was lead with that information.
We tended to err on the side of like, we are here for ourselves, but we are also doing a podcast episode on this thing.
And part of that was informed by that experience with the Etheria Society, where we really enjoyed going and visiting, and then felt uncomfortable with, okay, how do we now talk about this experience that we had?
Yeah, and I was having a discussion about this very thing actually on our Discord a few weeks back, where there's inherently a power dynamic to the studier and the subject relationship.
Again,
it's sort of like unavoidable.
We should have done sociology class.
Well, so that actually reminds me, I know I've told you this story a million times, but one of the more interesting epiphanies I had in college was, so at the University of Pennsylvania, there is like a very sort of like, I don't know, big or well-known, or some, I don't know. They have an anthropology museum. And I took a class called Empire in Literature and Film. And one of the things we did was visit the museum to learn about all these different, artifacts from different empires and whatever. But the thing that stuck with me was how the professor was telling us, like, museums are also tools of empire, which, like, I guess in the year of our Lord 2023 probably doesn't sound like crazy or surprising to anybody. That's sort of like old news because, like, British Museum, right? You just point to that and be like, look at those fuckers.
The reason why the British Museum is so big and has so much stuff from, like, Egypt and other plundered places is because the British Museum was the United
British
Kingdom.
Empire.
The British Empire was a huge empire, went and took all this stuff from the places that they quote-unquote conquered and then put it in their museum.
Right. And so that seems obvious now, but at the time I was like, I had only ever thought of museums as like,
this belongs in a museum.
This belongs in a museum, and like erudite places of learning and study, and they could only be good academic places.
Right.
I guess it's not like, maybe judgment call. Maybe saying good is not the right word here, because I don't know if it's necessarily means that they can be good or bad.
But I think
there's definitely a power dynamic there.
Objectively good, and then went to something more nuanced. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, of course. No, that was the trajectory for me. And it reminds me of this, right? Because it's not just like, I don't think you have to be like a colonial military superpower that is like literally plundering artifacts from like their homeland for there to be a power dynamic between the subject and the researcher. And I think that was actually part of what the lesson was in that class too. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, we plundered all this stuff. It was like, museums are a tool. They're not just a repository for imperial, loot. They're a tool for extending imperial power and like bringing that notion of, yes, we are better than these people because, and it's not explicit, but like if you're studying some other culture's artifacts in your museum, it puts you on a different level. It puts you on, and it says like, oh, our culture is on a level higher than this other culture because we are studying it.
Right.
And I'm not like a crazy person sitting here saying like, oh no, we should never, like, anthropology is a tool of colonial. No, like, studying cultures is important and good, but it's also important, I think, to think about the power dynamic inherent in someone who is a researcher and someone who is a subject. And bringing it back to our season, I felt that during our season, where like, even though we weren't going with bad intentions, even though we weren't going to like, steal fucking Tutankhamun's treasures from the Theosophical Society downtown.
Cool.
Which would have been awesome. We totally would have stolen them. even though we weren't doing that, there was still this feeling of like power dynamic that felt icky in a way.
And definitely felt like it needed to be addressed. Like, I don't think we ever felt... I think, like, some of the places where I felt comfortable with it were, like... I didn't feel uncomfortable visiting the Philosophical Research Society for the first time. Because that was, like, talking about a documentary. Like, that was a clearly... Like, there was not a... We were not doing a, like, we are coming to observe you. It was, like, we went to a documentary screening. And
there was also a lot of people... I think that makes a difference.
There was a lot of people.
There was, like, 200 people there.
To observe, yeah.
And there was no participation, really, expectation from audience members. I think that also makes a difference.
Right. I didn't feel this when we went to Ecstatic Dance. I didn't feel this when we talked about objectivism, largely because, like, you were from the community.
I mean, I was the president of the UPenn Objectivist Club for that year, so...
So it's like, if you
I get to talk about it.
Yeah. I literally want to, like, look at what else we did.
How did you feel when we went to the Hare Krishna temple?
Felt that, for sure.
You felt weird there? Or you didn't feel weird?
I felt uncomfortable that that I did not have the chance to really disclose to anyone, like, hey, we're here for a podcast.
See, I think that I felt maybe less comfortable there than I did at, say, PRS with the Source family, but I still felt pretty comfortable there. And I think that for that, it was, again, somewhat volume. There was a decent number of people there. But also, I think a lot of it is that participation, right? Like, when there's like 7 people in a round table in a discussion group, and you don't say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm like going to do a podcast on this."
Right.
That feels much more awkward than when you're just like sitting in a beautiful temple listening to beautiful singing.
Right. One's a church service versus like a small group.
Yeah.
And
I think with Aetherius, like if we had just gone to their service versus talking personally with the folks in charge there and like them treating us nicely.
Yeah.
Like if we just went to the church service and left, I don't think it would have felt nearly as weird.
And that was like the discomfort around doing Theosophy was you made it clear up front when you reached out initially, like, hey, we're doing this for the podcast. And so like you went through a lot of those kinds of hoops of saying like, we're doing this for the podcast. Hello, let me have a conversation with the guy running this. Let me have a conversation with the guy running that. And then when we went and took the class, there wasn't really the opportunity to say like, hey, we're the guys who are here with the podcast. We went mostly as participants.
Right.
And that felt like a weird, like nebulous liminal space where I'm like, we disclosed why we were here, but like that lady sitting over there doesn't know why I'm here.
Right. And there was, it was like one of those sitcom situations too, where it's like, you're like, okay, we'll tell them, that we're with the podcast or whatever. But like you get there and like it starts and the other guys, the discussion leader is talking. And then you're like, okay, as soon as, we go around and introduce ourselves, that'll be a good time. But then like that never happens. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll just cut in when we can or what. And then before you know it, like the meeting's over and you're like, shit.
Yeah. And then I also have a desire to not like undermine my own authentic interest in these things.
Right.
Like, there is also a truth here that is, I find these groups, yes, because of this show, but that doesn't mean my interest in them is not authentic. And like, particularly I felt that this season with the things that I was uncomfortable with. I really personally, outside of this show, enjoyed my time at the Theosophical Society. I will be attending more classes. I will be reading more about this. I will be learning more about this. Same with the Hare Krishna Temple. I feel like I have some like some of the hesitation to disclose also comes from, I don't want you to think I'm just here for the show, because I'm not just here for the show. I'm here because I'm interested in this and I do want to learn, and maybe this is for me, and there is some aspect of quote unquote truth seeking. So I don't want the other person to have the wrong judgment of me, but that feels weird.
Yeah, I know. It feels a little bit like cake and eat it too there. Like I want to be this, but also that. Like I even felt it with the Death Cafe a bit when the in-person one. I think maybe I felt this a couple times this season, but there's another aspect of it too where it's like, oh, you do a podcast? Oh, cool. Like, and then you can kind of tell that you are, and this is like, whatever, this is fine. Like, we have a podcast and it's okay. But you get viewed a little bit differently. You get viewed as sort of like, you know, the reporter with a notepad versus like participant. And then I don't know whether I'm like cleared for takeoff in terms of talking about the thing, because I'm not sure if people will think, well, is he talking about this because he has something genuine to bring up or talk about or whatever, or is this just him like fishing for content, you know?
Yeah. And that does feel like a personal problem. That feels like...
Excuse me, princess. What? Jesus Christ.
I meant with myself. I meant like, this is not somebody else doing that to us. This is us doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And I think that that's just... You know, we're not journalists, but this is probably something that journalists have to just like...
Suck it up.
Get comfy with.
Yeah,
and like, you know,
when
we watch shows like Nathan For You or How To with John Wilson, it's like these guys go and like build relationships with quote unquote subjects and then like hang out and have a good time and do the thing. And we see journalists
and exploit them for laughs. I mean,
yeah, that's a whole other topic. But you see journalists do this all the time too. Like,
yeah,
I don't know why. I honestly think that my genuine interest in some of these things makes it feel almost more uncomfortable.
I agree. And I think we just did a whole bonus episode on
whining
whining about how our fifis or how I feel awkward, and we just need to kind of get over it to do
I think it is reasonable to talk about, hey, this season we went, let's go do things in person, without necessarily like grappling with the fact that would make some aspects of creating this content different.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like the people listening to this show are similar to us in that they are like interested in weird groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if other people maybe sometimes have these feelings even when they're not doing a show, but if they're attending a group because they're like, ooh, this might be interesting and cool and weird, and maybe not necessarily something that like they themselves are going to keep doing. I think that's a normal human, like people go and do things for a laugh. You know, people go and do things for a bit or for the story. And does that make them bad and wrong and weird? No, but it might make you feel a little uncomfortable in the moment if you're like, oh,
it also depends.
The people here think I'm doing this for serious, but I'm here for
yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, there's podcast is one of only many reasons that you might attend something where you're there for a different reason other than purely attending the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that can probably range from like pretty benign, like, oh, I just have a fascination with these topics. It's not that I want to be a theosophist. It's that I want to observe theosophy in practice, or like that feels like totally fine, but maybe might still feel awkward to the person. And I think that there's another end of that spectrum, which is like pretty rude and
I want to
like,
make fun of you later.
Yeah.
This is I'm milking you as a lol cow. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. So I think that there's a whole spectrum of that. I mean, I hope that we're closer on the like less shitty side of that spectrum, but it's, you know, it's just something that I felt that like was worth talking about, because like the experiences of this season were very interesting in their own rights, but then the experience of the experience I thought deserved its own little discussion.
It's meta as hell.
And you know how much I love meta stuff.
You do.
All right, you guys. Well, again, come chat about it on Discord. Even though we're offline on the podcast for a few months, we will still be on the Discord posting really stupid memes and bitching about capitalism.
That's all I ever do.
That's Kayla's whole life.
This is Kayla.
And this is Chris.
And this has been Culture Just Weird.
Bonus Season 5. What the hell was happening?
Finale content, the end.